Hello everyone, it's Rayna. I simply can't say enough how beneficial therapy can be when you struggle with depression and other mental health issues. It was for me and for all the people I know who've been to therapy. If you are wondering how to know that you might need therapy and professional help, I'll link for you here in the corner and down below in the description box my last video where I give you 10 signs to look for. I highly encourage you to go check it out if you are struggling right now and are debating whether or not you need therapy. In my last video, I give you signs that will help you understand better what you're going through and if you need therapy. By the way, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please consider subscribing and make sure you click on the notification bell so you won't miss my next video. Now, what is therapy? What happens when you go to therapy? I personally was very skeptical before I got into depression. I thought that going to therapy was a waste of time and money, and I thought that the therapist is a very expensive friend who you pay money and he listens to your problems and he maybe gives you vague advices. Well, believe me, it's nothing like that at all. And unfortunately, seeing someone is still something taboo. People tend to avoid the subject because of the stigma they face, but I'm here to raise awareness for mental health. Now, before we move on, I'd like to make a quick disclaimer. I know that there are a lot of schools in psychotherapy and psychoanalysis and many different techniques for therapy. Since I'm not a specialist, I can't list them all, and this isn't the point of my video anyway. Just keep in mind that there are many different types and techniques of therapy. By the way, if you are a specialist and you can give more information, please do so in the comments down below. It would be interesting for you to share your knowledge with the community. So, going to one therapist might be a very different experience than going to another therapist, but still, I'd like to give you my own experience as an example to what you could most likely expect when you go to therapy, as well as my own thoughts and feelings. When I booked my first ever session with my therapist, I was feeling both anxious regarding what to expect and somewhat hopeful that this might be really helpful to me. My therapist is a middle-aged lady around my mother's age. Now I realize that I don't really know how old my therapist is. Not that I'm supposed to know, but anyway, the point is that she is around my mother's age, so she has a lot of experience, both professional and personal, which made me feel more comfortable, but I thought that maybe she might be old school and doesn't probably use the new techniques, if there are any at all, I don't know. But anyway, she greeted me warmly, but still with some distance, as to show me that she is friendly and well-intentioned, but she isn't my friend. She asked me what was bringing me to her and what was bothering my mind, and so I started telling her my story as well as the most recent events that have caused my panic attacks. She was listening and guiding my story with questions. She wouldn't interrupt me, but she would cut my narrative in order to explain to me why I was feeling a certain way. Contrary to what I was expecting, we were both talking. I can say that it was around 50-50 because she really takes the time to explain why. And why is the focus of therapy, actually. She's always said that we don't try to figure out who's guilty or responsible for whatever. We only try to understand why, because a better understanding of why my mind reacts that way is key to processing the events and ultimately to get better. She was constantly telling me that she understands how I feel, that she understands the reasons for my reactions. She was constantly telling me that it was absolutely normal and okay to feel anxious, sad, or to cry, etc. In other words, she was showing me compassion and understanding right from the beginning, which really made me feel normal and really reassured. I think it is very important to feel that way right from the start with your therapist, so you can feel comfortable enough to open up about yourself, about your story, your thoughts and emotions, and the traumatizing events that led you to therapy in the first place. What my therapist told me at the end of the first session was to go home, to think about what we talked about, and to figure out how I feel. She insisted on one very important thing. If you don't feel quite okay with me as your therapist, that's okay. You can explore other therapists if you feel the need to. And if you never come back to me, first, you don't owe me anything and any explanation. And second, Don't worry about my feelings, about me being mad or whatever. You are the one to decide who you're going to see. I think it's very, very important because in order for therapy to work and to be beneficial for you, first you have to genuinely want to go, and second, it has to click with your therapist. But in order for therapy to work, you also need to share. I shared very personal details of my life. I opened up about my feelings and emotions, traumatizing events in my life. I poured out my emotions in front of her. She, by the way, had a huge box of tissues on the table and a bottle of water and a glass for her patients, which made me think, okay, maybe I'm not the only one to cry around here. And so she told me right at the first session, it's okay to cry. If you feel the need to cry, I'd rather see you cry than seeing you bottling up your emotions. I want to know how you feel, don't hide your emotions. Now, when it comes to sharing personal stuff, more like events in your life, she told me two very important things. First, you share what you want to share. If you don't feel comfortable talking about a certain subject, just tell me. I will be asking you questions, I will be pushing you towards your uncomfortable memories, but if it becomes too painful, please tell me. You don't have to share with me something that you are not comfortable with. And second, whatever we talk about during our sessions, it stays here. I have a professional obligation to keep for myself whatever you share with me, but you are free to discuss it with whoever you like. But you don't have to if you don't want to. In other words, she encouraged me to share as much as I could about myself, reassuring me that it will stay confidential. But she told me that the power to decide whether I want to share what we were talking about with whoever I want outside of therapy, and to the extent I want to. Needless to say that my first session was drowned in a lot of tears, which was good, and I felt that this lady will probably help me get better, so I decided to keep up with therapy with her. I was seeing her twice a week at the beginning, then once a week, then once every 2 weeks, then from time to time, and now I make an appointment once every maybe 6 months when I don't feel quite all right and I want to share what is bothering my mind right now. Also, I was the one to decide if I wanted to continue and how often to see her. If I asked her for her opinion, she would recommend, but I had the power to decide how often to see her. So, there you have the story about my first therapy session. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. I hope I have given you courage to seek professional help if you're struggling right now, because it takes courage to go and to seek professional help and to open up about yourself and your wounds. Please take care of yourselves both physically and mentally. Bye!